And welcome, everybody. It's Friday, and it's time for your Nooner with me, Dave LaMont. Thank you very much for joining me. I'm hoping you're not reading that pain in the butt banner that's on the bottom of my screen here, because I don't want that anymore, and there it's gone. This is what happens when your computer craps out on you 5 minutes before the show is supposed to start. I have Jeff DeForrest and Mike Lubitz are going to join me in just a couple of minutes. Mike's running late, but I know Defoe's sitting there patiently waiting. Money burning a hole in his pocket as he gets ready for Super Bowl week and possibly a visit to the track, although the public's not allowed there, but somehow I suspect that Defoe gets in. Started thinking about music the other day because that's how I am, and there was the big news that I put up on Facebook of that it looks like the surviving members of Rush, Alex Lifeson and Geddy Lee, are talking about making music together again, which is fantastic. It's a great idea. I've always sensed that even though Rush ended when Neil Peart retired, and of course, ultimately we lost him more than a year ago, that Geddy Lee was not finished being out there. He had his book, The Big Book of Bass, and you just got the sense that he wasn't going to retire, that he was going to do something. And Alex Lifeson, we had heard, had some health issues. I guess he's got some concerns with arthritis affecting his ability. He is a considerably gifted guitarist, as you know. But this is great news. Well, immediately, what do you think everybody's panicking about? Who's going to play drums? Okay, it's a legitimate question. But can I ask you something? Do you think that Geddy and Alex are pretty aware of this and will make an intelligent and educated decision on who they're going to get as a drummer? Maybe they'll use a bunch of people. I don't think they're going out as Rush, by the way. That's over with, okay? I don't think they're going to do what Pete Townsend and Roger Daltrey did with The Who, which was their right. But for a while, they had three members of The Who, and Keith Moon passed. And then John Entwistle passed, and there's just the two of them. But they still go out as The Who, and it's their right. But I don't think Alex and Geddy are going to do that, is go out as Rush. And it goes back to the points I've made in the past with you guys about sports and their sports teams. Right now, things are pretty rocky for the Miami Heat. They're frankly bad. Now, all of a sudden, does this make Pat Riley and Eric Spoelstra overnight stupid? No, it does not. They've carefully gone through educated decisions and putting together this roster that a few months ago was pretty much good enough to get you to the NBA Finals. Things have changed for the worse. They can't defend the three-point line. They can't shoot from the three-point line. They turn the ball over. All of a sudden, Goran Dragic looks 44, not 34. And everybody else is massively underachieving, including Tyler Hero, who literally became a hero in this town by playing out of his mind. So we don't know who the real Tyler Hero is. He could be a mixture of current Tyler, past Tyler. So all of these things and injuries, although now they have everybody back, so that excuse is in the dumpster. But it leads to, who's accountable for this? The management or the players? Well, it's the players who were throwing the ball like a bunch of 8-year-olds. I mean, some of the turnovers I've seen are like what I saw when I was coaching 8-year-olds, when my kids were growing up, and I was one of their coaches. Billy, don't throw. Oh, Billy, you threw it to the guy in the other shirt. Oh, well. We had juice boxes after the game. Now, that's some of the turnover level we're watching. It's just bad basketball for the moment. It goes back to, do I think the Heat made some bad decisions? Well, yes and no. Do I trust Alex and Geddy to make intelligent decisions? Yes, I do. Will it work out? I guess we're going to find out. And I'm glad they're interested in making music together, whether they just make something that can be streamed, or if they, once it's safe to start touring, would they like to do a few shows, maybe just in Canada? I'd be up for that. Who wouldn't be? So instead of spending our time trying to tell them what to do, why don't we let them do it? Boy, things would be a lot better if we spent more time just letting people do what they do well without a lot of help, because I'm not sure how much we're helping them by offering all these brilliant suggestions. So I just had to bring that up because I was thinking of Geddy and Alex. And an interesting thing about me and Rush, and I'm going to bring Defoe in here in a minute. I liked them a lot when they were an active band. I adore them now. I think I've gained more respect for their musicality and what they did since they retired. apparently my dog does not agree with me. But since they retired, I really have come to love and appreciate what they did more than when they were doing it. So I'm looking forward to seeing whatever will come out of those two and whomever they hire as other musicians. Maybe they'll put together a band with horns. Who knows? They've toured with string bands before. So why not? But my point is, let them do it. Okay? Can you imagine, people going to Twitter the first time they hear, fire that drummer. That guy's not Neil Peart. Yeah. Come on. Knock it off. All right. Mike Lubitz has let us know that he is going to be a bit tardy, but he was here early. You know who was here before I was? Man. Look at that. There's a drum head right behind you. How lucky am I?
I could do the role there, although I'm no Neil Peart, who most people considered brilliant. But think about this. You mentioned The Who, and they brought in Ringo's kid, who was brilliant with them.
Yes.
There are a zillion great drummers out there. I know there are, certain guys that are considered exceptional, a lot of unique styles, but I think they'll be just fine. I don't think people should worry about who they're going to get, because the beauty of the symmetry of musicians exceeds even that of the Showtime Lakers. And these guys will always be able to make great music together. You couldn't get Magic and Worthy and Kareem together right now. They would not be able to do anything close to what they were able to do when they were running up the court, up and down the court in the 80s and 90s. But these musicians, they never lose it. They never, ever lose it. And they're great. They can get together 30 years later, and all of a sudden it's like they never left each other. So I think these guys will be fine. It's good they're getting back together. Yeah,
so I agree with you 100%. We've seen some of these bands age beautifully and still be able to sound great and sing great and perform well. I can think of an Alice Cooper concert I was at a couple of years ago. I'd never seen him live before, and I'm really glad I did, because I realized what I've missed over the years. So yeah, just and he went and hired a bunch of young, aggressive musicians to play his stuff, and he still sounds good. And it's this big, huge theater show. Yeah, it's awesome.
They don't lose the talent, and they don't lose the ability. And the thing is, it's more of an egoless art form, because you've been to the Funky Biscuit many times. I was just there the other night. It never ceases to amaze me, no matter who these guys bring up on stage, no matter how little they play together, that they can knock it out of the park virtually every single time with inspirational performances. And I think it's a little different, music and sports, because you don't have to worry whether you have two basketballs for Harden, Durant, or whatever. You might need three basketballs now, but they have Kyrie Irving. But and to your point about the Heat, wow, a bad draw this year so far. Whatever could go wrong has gone wrong for the most part, and it's is that when Mike Lubitz stepping into the studio?
It is Lubie.
Well, like I was just it's a mugshot picture of Lubitz.
It does. Did
you get arrested on the way home?
He's holding up a sign right now with a series of numbers on them.
He's trying to call Lifshitz here, see if he can get some bail money together. Get out. I don't know if you're going to bail out on the Super Bowl. Lubie, how are you, man? Good to see you.
I'm good, guys. How you doing?
We're doing well. We were just doing, Jeff was waxing beautifully, actually, about music, to the point where I was about to wrap up the show, because I don't think we can top what he just said. We might have to just call it a day.
It's a beautiful thing. Now, Lubie's taste in music, unfortunately, went the way of the millennials, and they don't understand all the classics. Although he might have been around when Rush was in its heyday. But anytime, when you have great musicians, it doesn't matter. You would see them even get together with like Paul Schaefer on Letterman, and any guy would come in there. It didn't matter who it was. It could have been Miles Davis. It could have been Peart, who did one of those drum solos. When you had the five great drummers doing drum solos, and amazing, mind-boggling. But these guys, they don't miss a beat. I'm thinking these guys are going to pick it right up where they left off, and there are plenty of talented guys they can have fill in.
You mentioned Letterman. Eddie Van Halen was on there a lot, playing with Letterman's band. Just by himself, didn't have anybody else Van Halen with him. It was just him. And yeah, that stuff, that's all over YouTube, especially I was watching a lot of it after he passed away. And you're like, Lee, that sounds, where's the album? Can I please have a Spotify of Eddie Van Halen with Letterman's band? I'll take it. So
another example, though, too, is Live at Daryl's House, a fantastic show.
Yes. That show is great.
Live at Daryl's house. And it doesn't matter who they bring in. It could be anybody from some avant-garde blues guy, ZZ Top, CeeLo Green, and they all play together in just perfect symmetry as if they've been together their whole lives. So music's a whole different beat, I think, than the sports arena.
Well, let me do a formal introduction now that we're all together. But these men have been on with me before. I've known them a long time, and I do so respect their opinions. And I wanted some experts. And when it came to degenerates, immediately, these were the guys I thought of. And I say that, let me explain to the non-gambling population what we mean here. Normally, when you say somebody is a degenerate or has degenerative qualities, it is not a compliment. It is usually some kind of perverse insult. However, in the gambling world, it is a badge of honor. It is like getting your hand burned for an initiation into the mafia to be called a degenerate. And so that is a term of tremendous affection, especially for the man who's in the middle of this sandwich of Lubie.
I've been advocating this for years, Dave, as you know.
Advocating it and living it. So
yes.
You do walk the walk in addition to talk the talk. So I wanted to obviously talk about the Super Bowl as a game, and I know you guys are probably up to here with that because you've been doing it all week, but just a few thoughts about that before we get into the gambling angles of all of that, because one will certainly lead into the other. I'm very excited about the matchup. This is one that I'm looking forward to, thinking that we get great quarterbacking and a great show and somewhat different approaches to how they do things. And Defo, watching Kansas City pull apart Buffalo with such a variety offensively, like you could not guess what they were going to do. And this had to drive the Tampa coaches crazy when they looked at the tapes.
Well, we mentioned the Showtime Lakers earlier, and there is an equation there. I mean, these guys are capable of streaking. They're down 9-0, and you're thinking, well, if it gets to be 16-0, maybe there'll be some reason to be concerned. But you know right away that Patrick Mahomes is going to put something together. He put 7 points on the board, has a lot of confidence. Everybody on that team has a lot of faith that he's going to be able to deliver, and it's not like he's without help. I mean, he's got animals on that team. This Tyreek Hill he's as good at, and you are calling a lot of football, and I'm sure this is an element, a component in a lot of games, and it was a problem for the Dolphins for many years. Remember, they always used to say, well, these guys, they can't get off the line of scrimmage. And they had no moves at the line of scrimmage. And then you watch Tyreek Hill with this, stuff that he does, almost putting like a voodoo curse on the guy standing right in front of him. And then next thing you know, he's 5 yards clear on the inside. It's just his release from the line of scrimmage for a small receiver is just spectacular. And then you have to worry about Kelsey and the running game, and Mahomes on the run is sensational. He has great numbers, but when he's moving with the football, which he may have to do in this game because there is a little patchwork element to the offensive line. It's Eric Fisher. We heard a stat this morning, speaking of numerology that relates to degeneracy. And Brandon Lang from the movie Two for the Money, they based that movie on his life. They had McConaughey play him, and he is that character. Lubie can attest to this. He's every bit that character. We always run into him on Radio Row. We have him on every week on our Degenerate Friday show. And he was saying that there's some just absolutely insane number in favor of the Kansas City Chiefs with Eric Fisher in the game. That when he's not in the game, they are like 3-3 against the spread, and they're like 31-0 when Fisher plays. So the Chiefs have lost their left tackle. Oddly, a friend of ours, in a sense, through a guy that we always have on the show, the agent to the stars, Brett Tester, Mike Remmers, sort of a journeyman guy with a real Horatio Alger story. He did make some money with Carolina, then got a big fat contract with Minnesota. Got hurt. That didn't work out so well. It wasn't as easy blocking for Kirk Cousins as it is Mahomes. But he's now in the spotlight as he'll be starting on the left side. So they've been depleted a little bit. They also have some other injuries that they may have to deal with. So they're a little thin there on the offensive line. But if there was an X factor that could make up for that, it is Mahomes. I mean, this guy is as mobile as it comes and seems to have great instincts with all of his receivers. So it's a lot to overcome, I think, for Tampa Bay. I know Lubie's a big fan of Tom Brady and wants to see him win this ball game so badly. That's not true, Lubie? He pukes at the possibility that Brady will be in the spotlight.
Well, listen, when is the guy not in the spotlight? But Tyreek Hill, Mike, and not to get the Dolphins into this equation, but one of the things I've said for several years the Dolphins have lacked, and give my language, but it's Facebook, is what I call an oh shit guy.
Yeah.
Tyreek Hill is an oh shit player, and that people go, oh, we got to deal with this guy. The first thing in defense court, and Mahomes, obviously, but quarterbacks are that way anyhow. But when you have one guy like that, and they really have two with Kelsey, where you're a coordinator and you go, okay, I might be able to stop one, but how do I stop the other guy?
Well, and that's the thing with the Chiefs, and you said something interesting because people usually just lump greatness together. Brady's great, Mahomes is great, Manning's great, Marino's great, Montana. But there is a very clear dichotomy between how Brady does it and how Mahomes does it. Like Brady, yeah, he had the 1 year with Moss where they chucked it everywhere. But most of his career, and Defoe loves to say this because the Dolphins have been kings of dinking and dunking. Well, Brady has mastered dinking and dunking. Like they had 6 guys that would be in the Little People Circus, and they're all in the Hall of Fame because it didn't like you go from Welker to Edelman to Hogan, who the Dolphins couldn't even find a place for, and they had no talent. But the guys in the Hall of Fame, the guys in the Super Bowl starring. So like Brady has mastered that. Where Mahomes, they just like, all right, we're gonna get really fast guys, and we're just gonna run down the field. And he just closes his eyes and throws it with his right hand and his left hand, and they're doing stuff you haven't seen on an NFL field. Like the last time you saw it was when you were a little kid in the backyard. You know, like in the NFL, you're not supposed to be able to make that work. And Mahomes has said, yeah, I really don't even break down defenses, which is the craziest thing to people because they see Mahomes out there and he's doing things we've never seen, and he's yet to learn how to master the game as a quarterback. So the way these two play quarterback is so different. And Brady's done that most of his career. Mahomes has come out the gate just slinging it. And not only it's fun to watch, but it seems like no matter what happens, the kid makes something happen. And that's the funny thing about Brady is, and Brandon Lane talked about it today, everyone assumes, well, I won't bet against Brady. Brady's actually played pretty bad in Super Bowls. Like if you look at Brady's actual statistics in Super Bowls, we just look at his record and we look at he's been there 9 times and he's won 6. First of all, 2 of those he didn't win. Okay. The other coaches made dumbass decisions that handed him 2 Super Bowls in games he didn't play well. That Falcons game before the 4th quarter, he played like utter garbage. That Seahawks game before the 4th quarter, he played like utter garbage. So well, you can't bet against Brady. I'd rather bet against Brady than Mahomes. The dude's in his 4th year, 3rd starting year, has won an MVP, won a Super Bowl, and comes back, like seems to relish coming back. Like he seems to go, you know what, spot me 14, spot me 9. I bet you in 4 minutes. He won the Super Bowl in the last 6 minutes. They went from being down to winning by double digits in 6 minutes in the Super Bowl. It was one of the great defenses of all time.
Let me offer you this. How well do you think?
I told you hated Dave. I told you you hated Brady. I know a big thing said about Brady's show.
But wait.
Not from that source.
Mahomes has played in 1 Super Bowl. Yeah. Pretty terrible for 3 quarters, wasn't he?
True. So
that's the Brady, Brady, and I understand you're fair, well, relatively fair regarding Brady, but he's also winning them, one way or the other. He's doing whatever it takes to win. In the case of you're right. The whole team was garbage until the 4th quarter and overtime in Atlanta. Yeah. But Mahomes was nothing in those first 3 quarters against San Francisco until they put up that rainbow that got caught. And that seemed to get them going, and they went on to win the game. So I agree with you about Mahomes being a magician. And I had Dave Hyde on Monday. He made a great comparison, and Defoe's been talking a little bit of NBA in and out of this, mentioning Showtime Lakers. Dave said that the Chiefs are like an NBA team. They go on these runs. Yeah. They go on these 22-2 runs. Look at the Buffalo game. They're down 9-0. I don't think any one of us would went, oh, this game's over. Oh, God, the Chiefs are dead. No, they went on like a 30-0 run, and that was it for a dream season for Buffalo.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the big difference. I don't know if Brady's capable of doing that. If they fall behind in this game, he's rallied teams in the past. But if you look at that second half, I think that's what Lubie was really talking about. We've been discussing this a lot. Everybody's lauding the storyline, which is a great storyline. The guy's in his 10th Super Bowl. He has a chance to go 7-3 in championships and have more rings than Chuck Nevitt. It's unbelievable as a football player. Almost impossible to dominate a sport like that at one position. But I would say this. He's the most accomplished quarterback probably that's ever played. I don't know that he's the greatest, and I'm not sure. We've been calling him a shot fighter for the last 5 years. But we thought, he was done years ago. He was starting to make some clown plays. He didn't look as sharp as he had been. And I don't know that Belichick throws in the towel on signing Brady for 2 years. It couldn't have been the money. It's Kraft's money. And he has plenty of it to spend, as we saw with that Asian
There are cap considerations to think about, though. I mean, he tied up a ton of cap money at his age would not have been a good business decision.
Maybe not. He had also shown him the loyalty of renegotiating his contracts all the time, making far less money than. I mean, it had to be horrible for Giselle to have him come home with that paltry paycheck of his when she's looking at the aforementioned Kirk Cousins and saying, "Kirk making $30 million, you making 15. No good." Did she speak like she was from an Asian country or something? No,
I don't know.
Don't do it to Giselle. But nonetheless, I mean, that she wasn't happy about this. So could they have given him the money? They might have been able to find a way. I'm sure they didn't have a great team out there this year anyway, which was unfortunate. So I don't know that it's fair to say, well, geez, look at this. Brady's in the Super Bowl and Belichick's nowhere, and maybe even could contemplate retirement. But the thing with Brady, he didn't play well. He threw 3 straight picks in successive drives. That was ugly. One could have been caught, but, the other 2 were Zeppelins. I mean, they were invoking the infield fly rule on that one play before the half where the Green Bay defender, how he drops that. I mean, you could have caught that at the park all day long, Dave LaMont, and that was a huge turning point. Otherwise, Brady's second half looks like an atrocity, and nobody's singing his praises. They're thinking, hey, maybe they can make a quick trade, Tampa Bay, for Chad Henne and see if they have a shot to win this game.
Except the Green Bay didn't do anything with those 2 second-half interceptions that were back-to-back, and that ended up knifing them in the heart for any chance they had in making the Super Bowl. I would offer
this. I think, had money. Did you see the FanDuel sticker on Matt LaFleur on the sideline there? Making the most bozoic strategic move we've seen since Tony Sparano was here. I almost said Soprano, but, where he would go for a field goal on first down from the half-yard line saying, let's just get some points on the board.
Coach,
what a useless play that was.
Yeah, I agree. I was going to say, Mike, to your point about Brady before we get into our gambling discussion, there's an old line from a John Facenda NFL Films that said, great players aren't always great. They're just great when they have to be. And, Brady has been there when he has had to be most of the time. Yeah. See, he was leaking oil in the second half. I will never dispute that. So as you try to find some way out of this, all right, so give me something, Mike, from the Tampa end. He's got better weapons than he's had the last couple of years in New England, for sure. Is maybe they don't have an oh my God player on Tampa Bay, but they're not terrible.
No. That's the thing is we get so enamored by what the Chiefs have to offer. Mike Evans is a top 5 receiver in football, and Chris Godwin is he a top 10 receiver? Like he's in line to get a huge contract. So they have plenty of talent. It's not that they're lacking talent. It's I don't know what to do with Brady at this stage. Like I get it. The last month of the year he played well, and playoffs he's played pretty well. But then you see that second half, and it's like bingo. Like that's what we've been sort of waiting for from the old man. And I think what the Chiefs can do defensively, they're not amazing defensively, but we saw Chris Jones on this stage last year tear up the Niners. So it's like, why can't you do that to the Bucs? To the Bucs, part of the conversation, what it comes down to is I think he has a defense he hasn't had in years. Like the Patriots, the last few times he got far was on offense. Like their defense, because again, you talk about cap. Belichick stopped paying guys a long time ago. Yeah, he never paid the Lord Malloys or the Willie McGinnis, but he still had talent defensively. The last couple times they made runs, their defense was not good. I don't care what it was statistically. They racked up good stats against garbage offenses. Like if you really looked at their defenses in the Super Bowl, that Eagles game, oh my God, that was a disaster. So Brady finally has a defense to match the offense. Like that defensive line right now, I don't know if it's as good as it's getting promoted the last couple games, but Barrett and JPP right now, if you look at Aaron Rodgers, he got sacked 5 times. Aaron Rodgers doesn't get sacked. Like he gets rid of them. He may hold on to him to make plays, but he doesn't take sacks. Like they were in his face that entire game. And this Chiefs offensive line is banged up. I like Mike Remmers. He came on our show. He's a nice dude. He's done a hell of a job filling in for Schwartz. But now to go to the left side, and then you have someone filling in on the right side, and then and they had the stupid thing with the barber this week, so you don't know what their depth is. Like that does matter, and they will have to change their game plan. So the Bucs with Todd Bowles, who loves to bring pressure and has already been a head coach in this league and sort of knows a thing or two, especially playing against Brady with the Jets. He played against Brady a lot. Like I don't think the Chiefs are just going to run away with it. I think the Bucs have a lot of defensive talent. David and Devin White are playing out of their mind right now. So that's fair. Have to keep an eye on that. People are scared to bet against Brady. To me, I'm scared to bet against Mahomes. The Niners had them dead to rights last year. You're right. I totally sort of, because the way that game ended, I sort of forget the first 3.5 quarters. But the minute Mahomes like, all right, you're giving me a 3rd and 15. This game's over. Watch. Tyreek Hill, they had a defensive mismatch. Tyreek Hill, poof, 3rd and 15, what, a 50, 40-yard play. Game was over, like, instantly. And that's, you and Dave Hyde talked about it. That's what they do. It does feel like, Devo and I talk about this all the time. Devo always jokes, like, because I live and die with every moment. Devo's like, Lubie, don't worry about it. They'll go on a 30-0 run because the other team are on a 15-0 run. So that's what the Chiefs really do play football like the Warriors. Like, okay, you spot them 10, they're going to go up 20. They're going to go 21-0. And we saw it in the playoffs all last year. And we saw it this year. The Bills looked more nervous than the Chiefs, and they were up 9-0 because it's like they wait to get down to get started. I don't think the Bucks can afford that. Like the way they play, they still do a very short passing game oriented offense. And if you get down to the Chiefs team, you're in trouble.
Well, you said the magic word a few times in your last answer, Mike. Bet. So let's get to it because certainly one of the principal reasons. Yeah, let's do this because not just – well, all right, let's start with the basics, and then I've got a list of prop bets, and I don't know if you guys are into that or not. I find them humorous, if not something to invest on. So let's start with the very basic. Some people I know managed to get in at -3, Kansas City giving up just 3. I think it's 3.5, and I'm a little surprised it's held steadily. I actually thought it might go up a little bit more. Where do you stand on this, Defo?
I think that's the magic question. And when something looks too obvious to you, you always have to wonder. The gods of gambling might be saying something as a warning shot, and then you have to look for other signs. But supposedly the way this has been working out, and we talked to Nick Bogdanovich, who is the line maker for William Hill, and he's the guy that posts a number, and then everybody follows along. Hey, what did he put up? 3.5? And sure enough, it started at 3, and the books had to move it to 3 and a hook because the sharp guys, the sharp money supposedly, whatever that is, coming in on Tampa Bay. They thought that 3 and a hook might balance it out a little more, and every time it drops down to 3, more and more capital is coming in on Tampa Bay. The fact that line has stayed, it's also a mystery to me, Dave. I know you follow this stuff, going back to your days when you were saying, waiting game to the 6 here at Dana Highlight. You probably had a few Quinellas working there that might have influenced enthusiasm of the
never allowed to bet. Never allowed to bet.
Sent in through a third entity there by secret messenger or whatever, because if you mentioned Diaz or whatever, then that meant you wanted a 3-6 Quinella. But however you handle that, you're just looking at this line staying the same. It's a mystery to me because I would think the Chiefs, on the surface, because of their ability to streakily score points like they do and make these runs with Mahomes and the weapons they have, I would think they'd be larger favorites. So I'm surprised they never went to 4. Every time it goes to 3 and a hook, it seems to bounce back to 3. The books get killed, by the way, if this game ends up 31-28. Because all of the money is coming in, and they would be caught in the middle there and just get absolutely annihilated between the people that really liked going ahead and laying the 3.5 with Kansas City and the ones that wanted Tampa Bay at 3. But I think there's a bigger disparity between these two teams. I just do. It doesn't mean it's going to work out that way, as we know, because, they have a fighter's chance, no question, with that defense. And the fact that Brady might have a very sharp game. It's entirely possible that this guy has the game of his life. And he's been studying for it for 2 weeks and looking at every possibility. I'm not sure that Kansas City's defense is great, but they do have some really talented players, and their secondary is very good. So and you can't sleep on the honey badger either. So my first inclination would be to go ahead and lay the 3 and a hook with Mahomes on the Lubie theory, which was that you have a better chance of covering 3.5 with Mahomes than you do of being within 3 and a hook with Tom Brady, unless Brady just has an unbelievable Phil Simms type of game and is on his game all the way. But he threw some sorry looking passes in that game and got away with murder against Green Bay. And if it wasn't for the fact I don't know, they beat New Orleans fairly convincingly. They've also played 3 straight on the road, which is not an easy thing to do, and gone through all of them. Although Washington was a gimme. And even in that game, they struggled.
Well, Washington played him pretty tough.
Yeah, against a quarterback that came off the streets there from a 7-Eleven. He was working after overnight shift. Next thing you know, he's a starting QB in a big playoff game. But Washington had a good pass rush. I think Kansas City can generate a little rush on Tom Brady. And who's going to suffer more if the pass rush pressure is equal from both sides? it's going to be a very stationary Tom Brady who's going to look like one of those statues they took down in Central Park of Columbus as he's standing back there trying to stave off what's going to be some massive pressure. And they do a nice job of mixing up the blitz too, Kansas City, very aggressive with that. So I think they're going to put a lot of pressure on Brady and take their chances that somebody else beats him.
Mike, what about the total? So I think I have it at 56.5. How do you see the over-under here?
Well, two things that I've heard a lot between our show is you joke around with degenerate. It's so funny. I don't really gamble at all, but because I've been associated with DFO for over a decade, it's assumed I'm a degenerate, and I've actually embraced it now too. I understand what degenerate really means. Someone who embraces life to the fullest. That's what degenerate means to us, and is willing to take risks and doesn't give a shit if the risks go good or bad. What I've heard the most is the spread doesn't really matter when it comes to the Super Bowl. The last over the decade, since the Steelers Cardinals, which came to the literal last play, to Daniel Holmes catching a touchdown, whatever team wins covers. Like you haven't had a team, the worst nightmare, win no cover, which is the worst thing when it comes to a gambler. You haven't had that. Like if your team wins, you cover, or whatever team does win. Has covered. So whatever team you believe is going to win this game, don't worry about the spread because it's small enough where they're going to cover. Yeah, the Chiefs have only covered like once or twice in the last 2 months because their spreads are ridiculous. It's an NFL game and their spread's like 10. You know, it's like an NBA game with the free throws. You're 6 points, come down the last 2 minutes with free throws. Yeah, your team got covered, but they went to the line 16 times. So if they're missing free throws, you get screwed. So this spread.
You hear that, by the way? Not to interrupt, but 3.5 barks. The dog is recommending lay to 3 in the hook.
Skip the
He cut that last one up.
Yeah, that's my dog, Jimmy the Greek. So, yeah.
He's on it, man. Play the team that you like. You don't catch the Chiefs with these small spreads. I like them a lot against Buffalo for that very reason. Is Buffalo capable? Maybe. And they're up 9-0 in the ball game, and you're not even schwitzing slightly because you're thinking – and the next thing you know, it's like, 38-13 or some ridiculous number that no matter what kind of comeback Buffalo comes with, although they made it a little scary. Because the line makers know this. They almost recovered back-to-back onside kicks after getting a gimme touchdown against Tony Sperano, not to mention him again, prevent defense. It looked like, Tim Tebow was going against him in that game with Denver when they parted like the Red Sea just to let them score one and eat up some time on the clock. But I don't think laying 3 in a hook, you rarely see that. The spreads are usually double digits, and that's why they're so horrible against the point spread.
I've got another window here that's loaded up with the prop bets, and this is sort of this is how they bring in people who might be the more casual bettors, and this goes everything from what will the first offensive play be to what's the color of the winning Gatorade that will be dumped on the coach.
Lubie likes yellow.
I think the little neon,
all over yellow,
lime yellow.
I think green. If they're Kansas City, you do red, don't you?
You would think, but I think orange is favored in this thing. And are they going with confetti? Does that count now? Because they don't want to dump.
It's automatic. On the coach. Ooh, you know what?
19 considerations, no Gatorade dumpage. You've seen it a little bit, but I've seen confetti like it was a Globetrotter game. And they just dumped a bucket of orange confetti. If I was going to bet on that, I would have to go. I would go purple at 8-1. I figure that's somebody on the team that wasn't making a lot of money. I know it's hard to influence an NFL player to making like at least $500,000, but some guy that maybe was elevated from the practice squad last week, he goes ahead and unloads on purple, and he's the guy that's in charge of dumping the Gatorade on Andy Reid.
And there's also the one that I've always thought was kind of funny because if I remember correctly, and if I'm wrong, you got to tell me that the anthem is recorded, is it not? And they just lip sync?
Oh,
that's a good question. Wow, I would hate to think that was really a thing with Beyonce. In fact, Lubie and I were at the press conference a couple of years ago, and Beyonce was the halftime. She was going to do the halftime show.
This is the halftime.
Yeah, the halftime show. So, of course, the big question, you didn't get this from Kevin Frazier of Entertainment Tonight saying, in fact, he poo-pooed the question and said, well, Beyonce, it's so sad that people accuse you of lip syncing the national anthem, which he had done like 20 times. I think you can hear the scratches in the record. It was like off an old LP they were playing this thing, like Robert Merrill's version at Yankee Stadium. And she swore that they sing this thing live.
All right.
So,
Well, I'm pretty sure the Whitney Houston's was recorded because I thought I heard music on it, and there were no other musicians around.
No band around. Yeah, that's always a giveaway.
So the thing is, if you recorded it, what
you would know. Yeah.
So you know the over-under on it. I would think you have to do it live because otherwise some recording engineer is taking everything he has and going, I like over here. And don't worry about the 150,000 I just bet. I have a sickness.
True story, though. Lubie and I were privy to inside information. I think, were you in Vegas with me on that trip?
No.
The great broadcaster, Footy, local broadcaster for your international audience, was a DJ. Very influential guy down here, and he worked for one of the pop stations forever, so he had ties inside the business still. And he calls me while I'm sitting in the sports book about, I don't know, a half hour to game time. I get a number I don't recognize. I'm thinking, who could this be? And I thought maybe it was Lipschitz, my bookmaker, calling from a payphone. But nonetheless, it was Footy, John Cross, and he says, how much money you got on you? How much money you got on you? I said, well, what are you talking about? What do you want to do? He goes, I got insider information. I know the first song Katy Perry's going to sing at halftime. I'm like, well, what are you, crazy? Can you bet that? I don't even know. Which you can bet this. Yes. So it turned out he had a friend who was at the rehearsal, and she opened up with Roar, okay, in the rehearsal. So she was going through the thing as if it was live. This was a final dress rehearsal. So everybody knew what the song was. But the problem was these prop bets, especially one of the bizarre ones, are limited action. So the only thing you get down was like $100 on this thing. And you had to find a place where you could do that, which we finally found somewhere in the jungles of Costa Rica online. You couldn't get it down at Caesar's Palace.
Really?
Yeah. So and the interesting thing is at halftime, I don't know if you've been to Vegas for Super Bowl. I imagine yes. At halftime, they turn the sound down. You don't hear the halftime show because they're taking bets at halftime. And that's one of the interesting things for the uninitiated. You're wondering, why is everybody running? And they're all running as soon as the gun sounds for halftime. They're all running to get their second half bets in. So they turn the sound down, and we had managed to get this money down for Footy. And all of a sudden, here comes Katy Perry on for the halftime show, and she's riding on the back of a lion. So either we're cashing this thing at 65 because the song has to be Roar, or she thinks she's Lafitte Guy. And she's riding into the arena on this lion to sing something else. But, that. The prop bets, some of the really bizarre ones, they don't take a lot of action on, although I intend to be broke before they even kick the ball off because I'm going tails, which there's a trend on, tails, and also over on the anthem because it's a duet this time. So
you know what? I don't even know who's doing it.
Jasmine Sullivan, who I'm not familiar with, an R&B person, and they tend to go long. Like they'll go, "Home of the Brave," and then they got a country guy that's trying to prove himself as an international performer named Eric Church.
Oh, Eric Church,
I'm not that familiar with, but everybody says he's great.
He's a big star.
So he can't just let Jasmine blow off the last, verse or so. I mean, he's going to have to stretch this thing out so they get some camera time. Super Bowl, I say over. A cinch, and then tails. Heads has come in 6 of the last 7 times. It's a long overdue for a tails. Oh no, tails has come in 6 of the last 7 times. So it's heads this year. Heads over. Heads
and over. I actually hit an opening song bet. The year I went was the year the Bucks beat the Raiders, and I went out in Vegas with a good friend of mine. And I do not remember. I think the hotel is no longer there. It might have been the Sahara, and. They had a sports book, and they had the option of what was the first song that Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers were going to do. And I put money on American Girl, and I won.
Nice.
Because it just made sense. Well, if you think about it, and I had obviously no information, but you think about it, it's the perfect kind of song. It kind of builds up a little bit, and you can kind of get into it. And it made – so I nailed that one, but I haven't tried it ever since.
Well, it might be worth a play, but I would have thought it would have been more appropriate if you started with, I don't want to live like a refugee, since people were betting on this thing.
No, well,
you probably didn't find yourself in a situation very similar after emptying out on who's going to, sing the anthem longer and who's going to play at halftime, what song they're going to play.
Mike, I hate to bring up a troubling subject for you, but there was a Tom Brady prop bet I liked, and that was plus or minus a half rushing yard.
Wow.
I don't know what to do with that one. Because what's funny is supposedly in his Super Bowls, he has had the under on that would win. But isn't he the king of like the 4th and 1 sneak?
Yep.
So a sneak, you're going to at least, like they don't go do half yards, right? So if he does one sneak, I guess sacks would make him lose yards, but
sack yardage still it's not counted anymore, right?
Right.
Okay, and that's my thing.
Right.
You're telling me they're not going to do one sneak. Like, they're not going to have a 3rd and 1. Like, that's the move. They don't really have a short yard. I guess
at the 1 yard line, how many times have
one in there?
Right. How many times have you seen him do it from the 1 yard line for a touchdown?
Well, he's like the champion of it. Like, you can't stop him. It's freaking ridiculous. So that's a weird thing to me, where in his career they tracked it, because I heard that somewhere, that the under would win. But I don't understand that, because if he does one sneak, he's going to get the over.
Let me offer this up too. The over is plus 140 right now.
Oh, okay. Yeah. See, I would do over.
There you go.
I would do over.
One sneak does it. One sneak that would put him over the top.
One sneak does it. And, now interceptions for Brady, I know which one Lubie's going to go with here, but he'd lose money on it. Would be interceptions. It's over a half. And under a half, which means he's clean, is plus 130, but over is minus 160. And for those who don't know, minus in this case, bad. This isn't golf. This is betting. And minus bad. So that means you really wouldn't make any money.
Would he not have any interceptions? Like, I'm not saying he's going to do that again. I just, with the Honey Badger back there, Chris Jones is going to bring wreaking havoc. Like, I feel like he's going to at least for one. Like, he's shown he takes a lot more chances now than he ever did. With Mike Evans there, like, supposedly they lead the league in, like, pass interferences. When you have a big, strong dude like that who actually can get down the field, why wouldn't you chuck it up a little bit? Like, I feel I would go over, and it's not my Brady hatred. It's just I feel like it's rare that a Super Bowl guy goes no interceptions. Like, you're going to at least take a chance. Mahomes is going to be willing and dealing, and I feel like he's going to see that and be like, oh, do I not try a little bit of fun? Like, I think he gets at least one. I would go over that one too. That's a weird one.
It is, yeah. It's concerned. I'm looking for Mahomes ones here. I've got a big list. So for Mahomes, see, it's both of these are minus 115 on his passing yards, over 327.5 and under. So you're going to get the same no matter what. Same with passing TDs is 2.5. Completions, excuse me. If you go over 28.5, you're going to get a little bit back. But if you go under 28.5, you're going to lose at minus 135. They've got him at the same ticket, guys, at a half of an over. And if you go, listen to this, over a half an interception, it's plus 140 on Mahomes. That seems like that's kind of sitting there.
I would probably be tempted to go over on both of those, but we had Mark Lawrence, PlaybookSports.com, a world championship handicapper on, and he analyzed some of these prop bets. And let's face it, we were talking about it earlier this morning on the radio show. There's never a new casino game that's designed in favor of the players. This was an old like when you were playing, it used to be called Indian poker. I don't know if we can say that in this platform, but that was, where you stick the card on your head. And when you find yourself playing that game in the casino with your last $200 after 4 days of getting bludgeoned, you have to realize you're playing into a very heavy house advantage. They don't design new games for that. And a lot of that is true with these prop bets. And I think Mark Lawrence was saying today, Lubie, you probably remember better than I would, because I was juggling a million things at the time. But nonetheless, he was saying they always want you to play the over on most of these prop bets, and they want you to say yes to whatever it is. Like a yes, there'll be more than half an interception or whatever. So that's the house, and that's how they make their money back. Because if they get killed on the game, they're still saying that they're going to make a lot of money on these bets. But I would think this would interest you, Dave LaMont, but where you start to get the crossover sports events. Okay. And I was intrigued by one. There was a lot of heavy analysis in the New York Post today. I was reading a couple of the prop bets. And, points by Joel Embiid will be playing with his 76ers against the Brooklyn Nets. The Brooklyn Nets have no defense. Points by Joel Embiid, you lay 1.5 versus points by the Bucks. Now the Bucks, if Embiid was to hit his average, which he's averaging like almost 30 a game, but then on top of that, he's been averaging like 40 a game for the last 5-6 games that he's played in. And the Nets have no defense whatsoever. They may have Harden on them at some point in time, but they have DeAndre Jordan is a human sieve in the low post. He couldn't defend your grandmother. And so they're figuring Embiid is going to go for like 40 points, which would mean that Tampa Bay would have to have like above 35 points in this game to compete. So that one had a little bit of science to it, kind of interesting, going with Embiid. And then there's another one, another beauty with Nikola Jokic, of the Denver Nuggets. His points and rebounds combined. And that was, let me check it out to make sure I have it right. You're getting half a unit. Nikola Jokic, points and rebounds combined versus the distance of the first made field goal in yards. So think about that. Now, team goes down, Tampa Bay. Brady's a little bit hot. He hits Mike Evans. He gets one over here to Godwin. Next thing you know, there's Antonio Brown on a slant. But they get to the 10. They stall out. They settle for a 27-yard field goal. And now all you need is 27 from Jokic. And that's combined points and rebounds. He's going to have that in points alone.
With rebounds.
Right. So you're looking at double-digit rebounds and a guy that's averaging lately close to 30 points. So the only thing that beats you is the long field goal to open up, the field goal accuracy and scoring.
And I'll tell you this. I don't see either team settling early for a long field goal because of the potency of if you're Tampa, you're not giving Mahomes the ball at the 35 in case you whiff on a 52-yard field goal. You're going to probably go for it if it's a reasonable distance and try to, again, hog the ball. So that, I don't know where I may be able to take advantage of it, but I have a working computer. So we'll see what happens.
I'll just Google the word sick and all these pop-ups will pop up. Yeah.
Well, I'm the guy who got in at 3. So I'm hoping.
Good. Kansas City?
Yeah. And I got in, once it was set, because I had a friend over. And side note, he ended up testing positive for the coronavirus 4 days later.
Well, that's not a good sign either from the gods of gambling. Yeah.
But my wife and I are fine. But no, we didn't. There was no action then. Actually, no, I hit on Dawson Knox on prop bets on Dawson Knox. Way to go, Dawson. But I remember, and I forgot what I was going to say, but I remember thinking, I'm going to check because they'll have it up. And I went, 3? Boop. I had to.
Yeah. I thought it was going to be 5 and a hook.
So did I.
Yes. Open and then maybe come down. Because the Brady story is a powerful story. There's no question. And, from a sporting sense, I know you're a great sports fan and have a sense of history. It'd be nice to see this guy do it. There's no question. If you just, out of respect for what he's accomplished in his career. And it wouldn't shock me if he did. I mean, the guy's pulled off some miracles in the past. As Lubie was talking about, though, I mean, he's stolen a couple. The Malcolm Butler interception down there. I mean, Pete Carroll, for all of his great accomplishments at USC, as crooked as that may have been. And, but let's not forget, like Sam Gilbert was there for the Wizard. Otherwise, he would have won 6 games at UCLA all those years. But so we can't question the integrity of Carroll based on that. But he was a damn good coach and recruiter at USC. And has done great with Seattle.
He has a Super Bowl. I mean, he would have had a second Super Bowl if they are successful from that goal line. No, I understand. And Brady a couple times had to run him down for late field goals.
When they're at home, they're making that at-home thing. I think has a lot to do with the spread. Which again, fan-wise, is the Super Bowl. Like the normal fan isn't spending $8,000 to get to a game. It won't really be a home game. The one thing you asked me about that we didn't talk about was the over/under, and that's another thing that the handicapper has talked about. The trends are funny. When you have 2 teams that are defensive-minded, it actually usually goes over. When you have 2 teams that are offensively laden, it usually goes under. So that's my thing. That 56, or if it's 56 and a hook, that scares me because I can see the Chiefs putting up some points early, but you'll see these teams sort of slow down and stagger. And I don't know, like I would go under. At 56 and a hook, like that scares me. Like I would go under there.
I'm going to let that one go. Yeah, my goal on that is I'm not big on over-unders because I don't want to be in a position to root against both teams.
Yes.
I'm just saying go Embiid. That's all I'm going to be saying the entire game.
You're going to make me
on the Sixers Nets and one on the Super Bowl. I love that kind of action. It's very complex. I mean, it puts a lot of things into. I mean, think about this. Now you've got to go start screaming, at a basketball game in the middle of this football game. But that's a pretty high total. Think about it. If the score was like 35-23, say Kansas City, that would be a realistic thing, I would think. You covered a 3.5, and Brady doesn't play terrible, but he isn't able to go toe-to-toe with the KC offense. That's still only 58 points, and that's a pretty high-scoring game or total for both teams. I mean, is there not a good chance one team doesn't show up in this game, as used to be the case in Super Bowls, where one team doesn't play its game out? It could be Kansas City. That would give Tampa Bay, obviously, its best chance to win the game outright. So You never know, but it's a lofty total, no doubt about it. I'm not sure you get the complete shootout that everybody's looking for.
All right, so the over-under on this show, by the way, was 50.5. So we're going to go over. So those of you who cashed
want me to sing the anthem? I'll go do it in about 3 minutes.
I actually don't. But last thing I wanted to get from you guys, I do want a prediction, and I do want a prediction on the spread. Whomever wins, and obviously if anybody picks Tampa, we know they're going to cover the spread. So, Mike, just straight up, who's to win the game?
I think Chiefs win, and I always think it's dumb to do the 27. But if you wanted to ask, I see like 27. I don't know, 17. Like I think they're going to end up winning decisively, but I'm curious what they do with that offensive line. Like I really am curious. Andy Reid, because and I like Remmers. They're going to be on islands against Baird, who's playing really well, and JVP has gotten over the firework incident and looks like the guy that got a massive contract years ago.
Yes.
So I think
you're right.
I think the Chiefs will win. I think it'll be decisive at the end, but it'll be close for a while. So 27-17, I guess, Chiefs.
All right. So a win and a cover from Lubie. Defo, leave your Embiid obsession behind for just a moment. Come back to the Super Bowl for us and give us a prediction.
I'm with Lubie, believe it or not, which is a little bit frightening because, the scariest thing if you're a degenerate is to like the chalk right away. If it hasn't appealed to you, you might want to, switch up the milk of magnesia for embalming fluid about halftime. But I just think they're more likely to play their game and put a lot of points on the board than Tampa Bay is. I wasn't overwhelmingly impressed with Brady in the second half of that game. And I thought that the big turning point obviously was the 7 they put up before halftime that just buried the Green Bay Packers. And then the Packers had nothing when they came back. They couldn't answer, really couldn't generate their offense right away. So I think Mahomes is a much bigger proposition with the people that he has on his side. This Tyreek Hill, here's a good one for you on the props. Now, it almost always goes to the quarterback of the winning team, the MVP of the game. But if Tyreek Hill has some ridiculous game where he goes for 250 yards all totaled, he would be the MVP at 16-1. Which might be worth a shot. He would be the only other Chief you're thinking has a chance to win the MVP award. So
maybe Kelsey, but I'm sure his is pretty healthy too. But he did have 15 catches against Buffalo.
Kelsey.
This guy's great. So and obviously if Kansas City's going to do well, he probably has to have a big ball game. But I feel pretty comfortable that Kansas City is a better team in this one overall. Because of the Mahomes factor and, the way that they run their offense, it's exceptional. So I think they can score enough points to beat Tampa Bay, and I think they can beat them. I'd be willing to lay the 3 and a hook. But I wish I was you, Dave LaMont, sitting in with 3.
Very
hook is a sword of Damocles. It is a dagger. It is a flaming arrow, if you will, right in the middle of your back.
It kept me. What game was 3.5 last week? Was that Kansas City or 2 weeks ago?
They were around 3. They were around 3.
Well, there was the 3 and a hook that I stayed away from another game for exactly that reason. So I'm glad that I got in as quickly as I did. So obviously, for the little amount of money that I put on it, I like Kansas City to win by more than the point spread for that reason. I just don't think, and I know it's a dumb thing, but I know what you guys know what I mean by outscoring people. I know Kansas City can outscore Tampa Bay. I'm not sure if it gets into that kind of game where Tampa has to just keep going down and throwing up points that they're capable of doing that. And, the fun part is we get to find out over the next couple of days and 4 hours and national anthem. Now I got to watch the anthem.
Anthem's going over.
It's Buck. What is it? 151 is what's the over under?
159. 159.
Oh,
it has to go to 2 minutes.
Okay.
Well, and I'll give you a bit of inside info then, because Leslie Visser, who was on our show today, just to spite us, because she lives to prove us wrong, amongst being a Hall of Famer and being a legend.
Right.
She said Jasmine Sullivan did do it at like the NHL All-Star game, and alone was 137. Okay, so I will give you that. Whoever's watching, however. Like Defoe said earlier, and he and I talked about it, it is a duet, and it's 2 different styles of music. You would think they're going to compete, to outshine each other. So why wouldn't they go at least 205? That's what we got to over.
Now I'm going to have to go to YouTube and Google Jasmine Sullivan NHL All-Star Game to get an idea of what I'm up against. Thanks for that one. As if I wasn't now worried about freaking Joe on their feed. Now I got that. You guys.
All right, here's one for you. what are the odds that the referees will be wearing FanDuel emblems? That's coming soon. I have that over under 5 years from now.
I want to see the guys
will be representing DraftKings.
Yeah, I was going to say instead of NFL
calls that are consistent with the idea that you might want to influence the outcome of the game.
Yeah, well, in the opinion of many people, they at least have it tattooed on their underwear, if nothing else. So
the bottom line is send it in. The game is no fun. I mean, the flowers are in the punch. If you're just watching this game for entertainment, forget about it. Have some money on it. Make sure you unload. Your 11,000 to win 10, Dave, I think is unfortunately in jeopardy because we both agree it was a good play. But yeah, I mean, even having $5 on the game. Lubie had $10 on the game the year I got married. What was that? 3, 4, 5, 6 years ago? My anniversary's tomorrow. And I'm trying to remember how many years has it been. It's been such bliss. But
you better hurry up and find out.
We're at 6 years.
Yeah, now I'm getting a call from the wife here. But no, the same flowers and card apply. I still saved the card from last year. I'm going to express the very same sentiment. Should be hard pressed to remember that. But Lubie has $10 on the game. Yes. I was going to say he has $10 on the game, and the guy we're with who paid for my wedding and was paying for him to eat one after another steaks at the Palm in Las Vegas, which he had reserved as a private room for our little party of 12 to watch the Super Bowl. Lubie is screaming at the top of his lungs for the Denver Broncos to beat Carolina, while the host of this whole thing, the great Duke of Dave, Bob Knuth, he's got like 12 dimes or something right on his thing. And Lubie had the audacity in his face to go, yeah, every time Denver scored. So, and he realized that even having $5 on a game is enough to drive you to emotional levels that you didn't think you were capable of.
I can just see the A1 sauce flying out of his mouth, hitting the guy in the cheek.
Lobster tails were flying around the room there. I mean, we spared nothing in terms of expense. And
well, Defo, to you and your wife, a happy 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, whatever anniversary it is.
Numbers. Yeah, pick a number. Yeah.
Do you get one of those cards that has the wheel? Remember you used to get those when you were a little kid, and it had a little wheel, and it said 8 would come up, and you'd go, oh, my 8th birthday, and then they could just cheat and put the wheel on 9.
No, it's worse than that, man. There was a sledgehammer, and there was a loaded revolver by the bed.
Yeah, so you just
I better do something tomorrow. Yeah, I better do something.
For the best 3, 4, 5, 6 years of my life, honey, it's all seemed like one long happy year. Just cover your ass.
I'm gonna give her 2 sticks and send her down to Gulfstream Park Casino and see if she can't do some good while I'm betting the ponies.
Guys, thank you so much. This was so much fun and great entertainment. I know you've been exhausted this week talking about all this, and saving this time for me was really appreciated. Thank you so much.
Anytime, Dave LaMont, you're always great with us, and we love having you as a guest on our show, so we'll never say no.
Are you back in action tomorrow morning, Defo, with your trivia?
I'll be doing a little trivia challenge from Hialeah Park, another great place to chunk away on the ponies. We'll be there from 8 to 10. We're giving a good prize away that we picked up today off the former Sun Sentinel writer for many years, sports, editorial writer, and also the food critic, Mike Mayo.
Yeah, Mike Mayo.
He's on with us as the Gambling Gourmet, which is a sensational, red-hot new segment. Lubie was recording multiple commercials for it today. And so we'll be giving away some gift certificates and having a good time tomorrow with a lot of Super Bowl trivia, no doubt, with Gurgley, Dave Gurgles Gurgley, and a polyman, Paul Massell, who is replacing Rinaldi. You might notice with your connections to ESPN and your inside information is replacing Rinaldi on those soapy, poetic
polyman.
Yeah, essays, the video essays. It's going to be the polyman. 2 horses on the track at the same time. Oh, it'd be great. With the music in the background, I think it's going to go well.
Yeah, I haven't heard that rumor, but I'll investigate.
Check it out. Yeah. Who's in charge there now? I don't know. Skipper left, right? The skipper.
Yeah, he's at Dazin or Dazin, whatever they call it. Well, you guys are going to have Peel Off the Mat Monday at 9:40 a.m. And if you've had a tough Super Bowl or a happy Super Bowl, this is the guy you want to listen to Defo and to Lubie. Again, my thanks for you all showing up and taking the time. Have a great weekend. Enjoy the game. Go Sixers. I'm sorry, go MB. You don't give a crap if the Sixers win, right?
No, we just need MB to go for 50. This way I'm assured of a victory there. Laying 1.5 points. I like the fact that you have to lay points with Embiid against the Buccaneers total. That's fantastic.
Not a good sign. That's going to do it. I'll be back Monday. We'll probably talk about the game. And again, to Defo and Lubie, I can't thank these guys enough for being so wonderful. Thank you all, too. Stay safe, and we'll talk to you Monday. And you've had your nooner with me, Dave LaMont. Thanks.